This is our second week of the digestive system. Last week, we went through the oral cavity, the pharynx, the esophagus, and the stomach. We spent most of our time in the stomach, talking about that mechanical digestion, some chemical digestion, and a little bit of absorption. But of course, movement through the stomach into the small intestine. We did not talk a lot about the small intestine, besides to talk a little bit about how entry of chyme into the duodenum, that first region, regulates gastric activity, so that intestinal phase of gastric activity. So this week, we're going to start here. We're going to talk about the small intestine and what happens in it, probably the most complex region of the digestive system. It's also going to receive secretions from the liver and pancreas. Oops, that's not the pancreas. Pancreas, which means we're going to talk about those as well. So we'll spend quite a bit of time in the small intestine before moving on to the large intestine and defecation. Along with this, we'll talk about absorption of some specific nutrients. So I want to start this week with what are the functions, of the small intestine. Write these down. Okay, so we've got that chyme entering. I'm not going to answer exactly like you should be. You're going to answer the basic functions. I'm going to just start with the review. Then you should not be copying down exactly what I say, because you should have already answered it. Okay, chyme is entering. That's what's right here. And we're going to, that's after several hours of mixing in the stomach, several hours there. We're going to spend quite a bit of time, that chyme moving through the small intestine. First, I want to tell you the name of the three regions of the small intestine. Then I'll briefly go over the processes that happen in those regions. I'm going to go ahead and write down the first one. We're going to have propulsion, right? Because we have to get stuff through this entire long tube, which is the small intestine. Okay, I'm going to choose a different color here to label my three regions of the small intestine. The one directly connected to the stomach is going to continue like here a little bit as well. So this part here, the first part, is going to be our duodenum. Second region, somewhere, so there's a bunch of twirly. It's in back, but we can't see all of it. Not going to ask you for like the locations of transition between the three regions of the intestine. Jejunum. Did I spell that right? Jejunum. Yes. And then the last region, which is adjacent to the large intestine. So right here is the large intestine. This is going to be our ileum. How do you spell ileum? Not the same way as the ilium bone. It's an E. Spell that one correctly. Don't jump in. That's the order. So throughout those three regions, the function does change. We're going to be focused on the duodenum, which is convenient. That's first. So the duodenum is where there's going to be secretions from the pancreas and liver coming in, and we're going to have lots of chemical digestion, particularly in the duodenum. So this is a main function of the small intestine. This is where we also control gastric emptying. We'll talk about the pancreas and liver's role, of course. We are going to have absorption as well. So let me do that in this color. Again, it's happening throughout the entire small intestine, but it does happen more as we move on, because as the chemicals start to break down, we can start to absorb them. So absorption, lots of absorption. That's going to be at the three regions, but happening a little bit later on. So nutrients are going to go to the bloodstream and then actually go to the liver. first. The last one we have is the last function that things have besides ingestion and defecation, which is not going to happen here. What's the other one? Mechanical digestion. There's a special way of mechanically digesting. It's not going to be the same as in the stomach, right, where we're like sloshing, churning, but it's somewhat similar. It's small intestine initiated or controlled. It's going to be primarily segmentation is what this is called. So propulsion is mostly peristalsis. Mechanical digestion is going to occur via segmentation. That's your overview. Let's actually look at those two ways of movement right now. So peristalsis, you've already learned about. This is what's shown here. Peristalsis is primarily a means of propulsion. Propulsion is occurring. This is where we saw it before, from the mouth to the stomach. This is also going to occur from like the duodenum all the way through to the ileum. And it's the way that the smooth muscle contracts to allow something to move in one direction. That's what propulsion is, right? You propulse something. Alternate waves of contraction and relaxation in one direction. A little bit of mixing occurs. This occurs throughout the digestive tract, right? Esophagus as well. That's what we saw before. Segmentation does not occur in the esophagus. It occurs in the small intestine, somewhat in the large intestine as well. So this here is segmentation. You can see the main thing is just that the smooth muscle contractions occur differently. What that means is we're going to have mixing happen. So this is primarily for mixing. So mechanical digestion. Here, non-adjacent segments are going to contract at the same time and then relax. This moves food forwards and backwards. So here, this one's relaxed, and here it's contracted. Relax, contract. So this alternation of contraction and relaxation is going to allow food to mix with all the intestinal juices. This is what's happening here as the color changes. So this is intestinal juices. We've mixed it up. Some propulsion occurs via this mechanism, but the primary goal of this is mixing. So this is unique to the small intestine. Some does occur in the large intestine as well. Okay, one more thing for this intro, a little bit more anatomy other than just those three regions of the small intestine. Let's look at the liver and gallbladder and then the connections from those to the small intestine. We'll see this again when we get there, but here's a introduction to it. So here is our small intestine, right? Here would be our duodenum. And let's actually label a few other things. I'm sorry, the start of the small intestine is right here. This would still be duodenum through here as well. So here is right here. What is that? Our pyloric sphincter. And I have this slide titled sphincters, partially to help me remember how to spell it too. Let me erase some of those extra lines. There are a couple other sphincters. Sphincters are pretty common in the digestive system. One of those is going to connect to our liver and gallbladder, which is why I said we were talking about that. Okay, so we've got the pyloric sphincter right there. This is our duodenum, and actually just label that like that. Right here, We're going to zoom in. This is a sphincter. This is the sphincter that controls pancreatic and liver juices, gallbladder juices, controls their entry into the duodenum. So this is called the hepatopancreatic sphincter. Isn't that convenient? Much better name than the sphincter of Oddi. Here is the sphincter, smooth muscle that can contract and relax. And distal to that, there is a common bile duct and a pancreatic duct that we will look at each of those more closely. They combine together to form this hepatopancreatic ampulla and then goes through the sphincter. This is the term I have for your key terms here. The sphincter is going to regulate bile and pancreatic juice flow into the small intestine. So that's why that one's important. So we'll come back to this when we get into the small intestine in more detail. The other sphincter I want to tell you about, where else would we have a sphincter here? We'll go through the small intestine, duodenum, jejunum, ileum, right here. We want to be able to regulate flow to the large intestine. So there's a sphincter right here called the iliocecal sphincter. The cecum is this large portion of the large intestine right here. This is the appendix hanging off there.